Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the SAO Fanfiction Central podcast. This is episode 6, and I am your host today, Panzer, and I'm joined by my fellow sage, Nain.
Hey.
Unfortunately, the other two can't be here today, but we have other guests to fill their places. We have Twisted, of course.
It's good.
And so I'm going to say Fejj. No, I've completely pronounced wrong. Sorry.
No. You got it. Hey, how's it going?
Fejj, yeah, okay, marvelous. And today we'll be talking about the War of Underworld, which I keep saying wrong. I always keep saying War of the Underworld, but there's no the.
Well, it should be.
It should be
the in there somewhere. It's just Japanese people translation is like
Japanese to English is always shaky.
So it's a little shaky.
Let's just say.
Glossing over that entirely. But so should we start with discussing it, or should we go right into a story snippet?
I think the story snippet idea is good, but I really want to use our long introductions that we made today.
So, I mean, we're definitely beating Len's in terms of length anyway, so...
Len fucking speedrun that shit.
With at least 3 self-help foundations.
Yeah.
I mean, you got what was actually supposed to be going on across perfectly fine, it's just... Yeah. So we can go for a snippet first. Which one do we want to go for first?
Well, since you are host, you might as well start to.
Why are you throwing me under the bus again? Okay.
Yes, because it's fun. Because for some reason I'm the leader, and I can choose who to sacrifice, so I don't have to do anything at all.
I'm going to call you out of context for this one from now on. It's fun throwing people under buses.
So many buses.
Age of bus. Yeah.
Bust.
Yeah, except bust. Okay.
Horny on main, Twisted. Horny on main.
Horny on main. Go for it, Panzer.
Alright, so this one, it is Against the Darkness We Stand, which it's yours, Twisted, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah. I'll let you explain what it's about after we're through. So.
Yeah. So basically, the general premise here was that I watched Sword Art Online a very long time ago, and basically just I've written quite a few stories set in the universe, several of which has been deleted because of cringe factor.
It would never stop me.
Yeah, no, I started out with the mandatory self-insert fic when I was a young teenager. That has since been deleted, thank God. Truly, next level. But yeah, it's gone now. And then I joined this Discord server eventually, and one of the people in here, Againt, actually was the one to bring up the idea of a dark fantasy SAO story because he hadn't read any. So essentially, take SAO and make it even edgier, to the point where it's like complete edge. So eldritch horror, tons of gore, violence, sex, all that. Make it as edgy as possible, right?
But no rape. We had enough rape skins.
Well, yeah. But no rape because Reki has us covered there. We don't need to. Yeah, he got us covered. We don't need to cover that base. So basically, this is basically just an excerpt from the first chapter, the very beginning of the chapter.
Marvelous. I'll try not to cut myself on the edge, but
yes, do the edge. It is very sharp.
Yeah. Handle it like a very sharp knife.
Exactly.
Which also may have connections to Subaltwitch gods or something.
Maybe. It's possible.
If it starts looking weird, you know what's going on.
Panzer has been possessed by the Eldritch elder gods.
Exactly.
We should really try to summon count for this one.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, I remember. Started chanting in Eldritch back in the day. That was an interesting experience.
What he did to Yui, that gave me nightmares.
Yeah, dude, he did you dirty.
Very dirty.
I mean, hey, at least Yui wasn't just a plot device.
Don't remind me.
No.
Answer, you're up.
Yes. Anyway, so let's begin. At the back stood a throne made of strong silver blades, glinting dully in the light of a Gothic calendar. In the front of it, a sea of glass, clear as the purest crystal, and there, standing right in the middle of it all, was Kayaba. He was wearing his signature lab coat, his brown hair having been carefully brushed to the left in an arch to keep away from his eyes. Kayaba. Congratulations, players, he said once they moved closer to him, weapons at the ready. You have finally made it all the way to here, to the Ruby Palace. It has been a long 3 years since the start of the death game, but finally, you face me. We have nothing to say to you, you monster. Osnus bats an angry grimace marring her otherwise beautiful features. Then that may be so, Kaiba nodded, eyes locking in onto her slender form. And yet, I sense a certain level of curiosity. Do you perhaps desire to know what I did? Why I created this world, and trapped you all within it? Yes, Kaiba, Kirito answered, sheathing his sword as he talked. I've wanted to know the answer to that question for as long as I can remember, but, Kaiba asked, turning to look at him instead, you're not the one who's going to give me the answer. A moment of silence came and went at his words. Then, out of nowhere, a dry chuckle escaped Kaiba's lips. Very astute of you, black swordsman. Suddenly, something slithered out from behind the massive throne at the back of the room. A large shadow moving too fast for them to follow. It skittered about the room, with screams of terror from several members of the assault team. As it moved, its form gradually grew smaller, until only a tiny fragment remained. Before it disappeared completely, however, it dropped something off at their feet, a body. Kirito didn't even need to look at it to know who it belonged to. It was Kaiba, the real one, and he was dead. Or probably had been for a very long time. The fake version of him that they had been talking to so far abruptly crumbled to dust. As it did so, the massive wooden doors behind them closed shut with a bang. Then finally, it spoke. Welcome to my domain.
Wonderful.
Well, that's actually very enjoyable to read, actually.
Yeah, wait, you haven't read this? Is that an admission of guilt of not having read the actual story, Panzer? What I'm hearing?
It's on the list. It's on the list.
I think that was very hard to find a snippet for this story because you want to show that it's a dark fantasy, but aside from this prologue, your story haven't really reached that level of darkness yet.
No, you're not wrong. There isn't really a whole lot of like dark fantasy to showcase yet because there isn't a lot of it in the story as of the moment. As of right now, it's very much just it's still early like floor 1 stuff. So a lot of it is very much high
Almost
fantasy.
rape.
Yeah, and there's some almost rape, but I'm not Reki, so I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna include that, or I'm not gonna go through that.
But you still self-inserted yourself.
Yes, exactly. I did actually. Yeah. That's actually the guy who almost raped Asuna is a self-insert of myself. Ironically enough, just for the memes.
Your true colors are revealed.
Yeah, he gets owned by Kirito though. So like, yeah.
You are owned by Kirito.
Yeah,
that's what you're saying.
Pretty much, man got destroyed.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I myself read your story and liked it so far, and even if I really fear all those horror stories and the memories of Counts summoning other gods, I'm still looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. Once we get into the flow of things with that story, it's gonna be real fun.
Yeah.
Or real dark, real grim is perhaps the better way to put it.
Yeah,
Grim.
it's definitely higher up on the list in terms of reading. So I do enjoy some good old fashioned grimdark.
Yeah, it's very nice. I mean, it's not much grimdark yet, but we'll get there.
We'll get there when we get there.
We'll get there.
Still building up to it. Yeah.
Exactly.
If you just throw that out there straight away, it wouldn't feel as good if you like gradually built it up, which is exactly what you're doing. So
Yeah.
Which is what I'm doing.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It's much
Sometimes
better. Go ahead.
Sorry. No, I was just thinking, sometimes you have to make the reader feel safe and comfortable, like, oh yeah, I know how Sword Art Online goes, and then suddenly, bam, you throw in the twist and tone, and then they buckle in for a really wild ride.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to say to that. Lure them into the self of safety that, oh, okay, it's not as bad as it looks, and then, what happened to you?
And then it all shit. Yeah.
But suddenly, bam, grimdark.
Exactly. The build-up makes it better when it all just comes crumbling down. And there's a lot of really cool ideas for that story as well that I can't wait to implement. I've discussed it a lot with Againt because he's even edgier than I am. So he's like, yeah, dude, let's make this shit.
He's
wild.
like the edge itself.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, he's very versed in Warhammer 40k, so
Yeah, he's a Warhammer 40k veteran, and those guys are edge.
So
good stuff.
definitely check it out.
oh, definitely.
If you enjoy psychological trauma, it's for you. I recommend it highly.
Yeah, we'll give it a read straight away.
And if you are enjoying this sort of thing, then I worry for you. Okay.
But yes, let's continue and go to the main topic of today, which is War of Underworld, which is the second part of the Alicization part, I guess. It's not an arc, it's two arcs, but overall it's called Alicization, I guess. But
it's like so many arcs that
Yeah.
they decided that the world building is into the first arc, and then the fun stuff to the second.
yeah, we'll keep to most of the fighting to this arc, which, to be honest, pretty much the entire arc is just one battle, to be honest. But
Yes. Well, and the funny thing that it's a battle on two sides. That there's a battle in the outside world and inside Underworld. So it's nice to see the parallels and how one battle affects the other.
Yeah, I have to say, going between actually felt very natural in terms of what was going on in between what was actually going on in the real world and.
Sorry.
In the middle of it, and he's like, Tiger! Target acquired. Okay, keep on going, Panzer. Ignore his interruption.
But yes, the parallels between what's going on in the real world and what's going on in the underworld as well, how it goes between them felt very natural in terms of wasn't too forced going between them, and however, yes, as you're saying, things linking to each other. I did enjoy that particularly.
Yeah.
Although I guess it does help the accelerator being moved to 1-to-1 does kind of help in terms of getting things things which are happening side by side, I guess. But
Definitely. It's just a plot device.
It kind of slows down the plot. It slows down the timeline a lot by putting the accelerator limit to 1-to-1, which is so insanely nice because for once things are actually happening at the same time and not like Kirito time and Asuna standard time. It's like they're like kind of on the same timeline again. And Asuna returns and actually gets a role. This time, she's been on the front cover of SAO for a very long time, so it's nice to see that Reki is finally oh yeah, right, I have more than one character. And then he gives Asuna some screen time, which I very much approved. I would say that her role in War of Underworld was a little one-sided in the sense that she sort of shows up. She's like, my husbando in danger, and then she immediately just it's like starts fighting, and I feel like for the majority of that season, we just get to see her either very angry or focused, or very sad, and that's like the two emotions she's capable of showing.
It's more than we got usually, so
yeah, I mean, it's more than the housewife settings she's normally in, so I mean, it's
as I said.
yeah, it was a step up for sure, but like I wish, yeah.
Well, I have to say that I liked many things about this arc. Asuna's character development, or sort of one thing. One thing I really didn't like, that some things just seemed so out of control, like the bad guy's ability to manipulate the minds of men, and just this thing that, what the heck?
Is it basically just the power of imagination, I guess?
Yeah, I mean,
the power of imagination, but it's one thing that you can influence non-player characters or the Floodlights, because they still a little different than normal humans, right? There's still a little difference. Like, they are more like program-based, and you can. But the guys who just logged in from Korea and other things, and they just
it's ironically a stretch of the imagination whenever you get to that point where I think I want to make sure I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Visagio? Thank you. When he starts manipulating the minds of like the players to start attacking each other, because it's based on that power system of imagination, but I agree, it's kind of how far does it actually go.
It's a very convenient power system, because he just says, yeah, so in the underworld you power up by like imagining shit, so anything can happen, you know? I can turn into an Apache helicopter if I want to. You know, that's how, like, with the power of my mind.
Big robots.
So why did no one do that? Why did no one...
I mean, you know, if I was, I'd imagine myself having an assault rifle, and that would be very useful in a massive army battle, like, just like...
I would imagine having the nuke.
Yeah, exactly. Just like, oh, you guys have swords? Well, I have a, AR-15 double duct tape mag, just like, I think I'll win this battle. Like, so there are definitely some, like, there's a lot of plot convenience in a sense. And shout out goes to the people who voiced the American soldiers, or the holy shit.
Yeah.
If anyone wanted to wonder what on earth English is, just play that.
Yeah.
That is true English right there.
It was some solid English, dude. That shit was
fantastic.
It was beautiful. It was almost beautiful how beautiful it was.
Definitely. One of that I found strange in the bad guys, that the main bad guy, Miller, I think that his name is Gabriel Miller or something like that.
Yeah.
He's just so forgettable that, like, around the last battle between him and Kirito, I didn't even remember his name. He just there.
Wait, you mean the blonde guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like, we know we have P.O.H. Wasagao, the big bad from Laughing Coffin, and that guy just there. He's the mastermind, but who the hell are you?
Yeah, Gabriel was a little bit of he was kind of like, the gimme soul sucky. It was kind of like, it was a little...
He's a soul reaper.
Yeah, and it was kind of difficult for me to like get a read on him, because he's introduced and he's sort of like, he's with this childhood friend of his, and they're just vibing, and then he just takes the screwdriver and just kills her, and I'm like, okay.
I want to see your soul.
Yeah, that seems a tad bit excessive. And then he apparently can see her soul leaving her body or something.
Yeah, that's
he's like, oh,
there's something wrong with his head.
Yeah, so
it wasn't SAO Supernatural.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was actually a little bit confused if this was supposed to be happening in the underworld, in some far off region where they had higher technology, but it turns out that was actually just real life. This man can see souls.
Yeah, that's one very thing that really just I like that lots of that magic entered the equation, and there was a lot of interesting ways to fight and a lot of interesting fighting styles. But a little bit I missed the old style sword skills from the original SAO, because there was a one point, especially that with that mind like and Sao powers, that I just felt that it's not SAO. I'm just watching some generic isekai with unfounded powers.
I mean, to be honest, most of the very generic isekais came after when the very original of this was made. So I can kind of, if this came before all of that, I'd accept it a bit better. But because it's come after all of the generic stuff, I can't accept it as much.
Yeah, I mean the original.
It started a little lose the spirit of SAO, I think. That was my feeling when I watched this, especially that last battle between Kirito and Gabriel. Okay, cool.
It looked really cool.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
It looked amazing. It is made even funnier, just like with the previous season, normal Alicization. It's made even funnier by the fact that it is literally just two dudes imagining themselves looking cool.
Yeah.
Powered by imagination. So it's literally like, yeah, it's like a visualized, D&D campaign where they're like, oh, I look so fucking cool in my mind right now, and it's and I thought that's a little funny to me. But one of the things that I always kind of, at least appreciated with SAO. Was the fact that it was kind of still grounded in reality to a certain extent. So, like the things happening in the game, the world outside of the game was still just the normal world. And so we got to the second season with like GGO and Xenon and Death Gun, and there's this guy who can apparently kill people in the game by just like shooting them. But then we find out that at the end he's like, okay, this was also grounded in reality.
Yes.
He's literally just injecting people with poison. And then in comes Gabriel in season 3, and he's like, yeah, I can see souls. And I'm like.
It was that relatable part of it that you could. Part of it that is you could really self-inject yourself into Kirito, but part of it was that if you try to think about it, it was not that far off. That in a game you can do this. You can maybe give it 30 years and maybe it will be reality. Maybe. If we are lucky as old men, we will be logging to SAO and play as young spry men.
Yeah, like it was kind of like you could squint your eyes and it could almost take place in reality. Like you could be like, okay, I can see this tech being available at some point in the not immediate, in super far off future. Right?
Yes.
Whereas with the Underworld and the Soul Translator, when I listened to the explanation for that, I was kind of like, I was like, this is not taking place in our world anymore. This is some Star Trek bullshit. Interact with the light photons in the brain. I'm like, bruh.
It's kind of funny how we create kind of like these lines of like, okay, this is believable versus like this is kind of stretching the imagination a little bit. So I'm kind of in a weird position of how I view War of Underworld. I'm one of the people who actually prefer, at least in the anime, part 1 to part 2. Even though part 2 has like all the really epic fight scenes and the amazing animation, I'm kind of in that same position where the imagination, the power of the imagination, and the way that the Fluctolights are used in this arc, like it's really interesting to me, and I was willing to kind of run with it because I think part 1, because it's able to slow things down, we kind of hone in on some of the characters who are living in the underworld, and specifically with Alice. I know people have controversial opinions about Alice, but because we kind of get that slow down and we see like the kind of lives that they're living, it keeps me engaged, and it doesn't really make me doubt the legitimacy of the technology that they're using or how it's possible. My kind of emotional lizard brain turns on and thinks like, okay, like, yeah, I'm just following the characters and their emotional beats. All of that kind of changes when we get to part 2, where the everything gets changed to 1-to-1 on the time acceleration. All the players start joining in, and then, like you say, the villains start utilizing really kind of out there abilities. I probably would have bought it more if, instead of Gabriel Miller seeing souls, if maybe his ability had some way to basically mess with the flux lights in the system, kind of like some kind of hacking like ability or some kind of a virus type of ability, instead of actually seeing human souls that exist outside the system. And on top of that, I think part 2 would have been a lot stronger if Miller and Visaggio's roles were flipped. If the main villain, the overarching villain, was the leader of Laughing Coffin, because there's kind of a built-up history between Kirito and him at that point, and if Miller was more of like the lackey character that had to be kind of overcome first.
No, I can see your point. I think it would have been alright if Miller remained the mastermind, but it would have been better if he was just the brain. He would have been just gave the plans, and Visaggio would have been the real final boss to really overcome. And when he's not the leader, he's really the last boss that Kirito has to defeat, that they have to settle that score between them.
Yeah, because Laughing Coffin's basically been there from day one, so it would have been a perfect way to end this arc, saying that it's an end of a chapter, I guess, in terms of a character's development, in terms of basically gone through all his points of Laughing Coffin's existed for his points and killed all his members of that, but now you've killed the boss, so now you can move on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, good idea. What I really didn't like about Visaggio, he got a super character, a super Dark Knight that is supposed to be something close to actual level, like Asuna's and the other super raccoon, and he just died. He didn't really try. He just
he got no clipped. Yeah, my guy fell straight through the ground. He got no clipped. He was like GG no re.
Straight into the hole.
The funny thing is, Asuna really defeated him without even realizing it.
Exactly. Didn't even know.
Oh, that was easy.
That's really badass that you just defeat the really big bad boss before even noticing that. Oh, yeah. What was this about?
Yeah, no, I mean, I liked the fact that Visaggio got an actual role, because the thing is, it took me a while to realize that he was actually supposed to be the leader of the Laughing Coffin from the original season. So, yeah, it took me a while to realize that until it was like explicitly pointed out, and I was like, wait, oh right, I remember there was some character in season 1 that was there for a single episode, and his name was Poe, and he was the leader of the Laughing Coffin.
Yeah.
And then we never heard from him again until Alicization, and it's kind of like, I think we heard more about the people in the Laughing Coffin than the actual leader, because I can only recall him being in one singular episode, which is the one where they find Griselda's ghost or whatever.
Yes, in anime.
And that's the only time we see him.
Literally one scene.
Yeah, fucking scene.
Yeah, I think if I remember right, in the light novels, in the flashback of Kirito in Phantom Ballad, when they're remembering the fight against Laughing Coffin, I think he is mentioned that he was there before escaping. But really, all I could remember his character before that he was very charismatic, and that's it.
Yeah, basically. And I mean, if you're Poe gets some more character development if you're a SAO progressive, Chad reader, then you'll get to see more of him, because SAO progressive is basically just
SAO.
It's basically just SAO. It's the canon version now.
How SAO should have happened.
Yeah, how SAO should have happened. So Ricky seems to be acknowledging the fact that, okay, I did Laughing Coffin mad dirty in the first season, like when I wrote the original Aincrad arc, so I need to like go back and rework this shit so that it actually feel like a threat as opposed to just he turns up in one episode and then he just walks away, and then we get some flashback in season 2 where Kirito is like, oh man, I got PTSD because I killed some dudes in a cave.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Going back to this PTSD, I think it's funny because he got PTSD from that, but not from killing that guy in the KOB. What was his name? Kuradil. Kuradil, yeah.
Yeah.
And just
He didn't get PTSD from that, and he also he didn't get a lot of PTSD from killing his entire guild. He just got sad.
Big sad, yes.
And then he was big sad up until Christmas, and then he got a gift and he cried a little bit, and then he was I'm good.
yeah, he
yeah.
got better.
Exactly. Yeah, no, so yeah, I mean I'm happy that he kind of got the leader of Laughing Coffin kind of got to shine a little bit, and I have a feeling that if in like 20 years when we're on progressive volume 21 and we've had a lot of character development for the Laughing Coffin, I think season 3 Vasago will hit harder then than he does now. Because you'll be like, okay, I actually know this character now from before.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because sorry, go ahead.
Just going into that hinting about Laughing Coffin and Gabriel and Vasago, I think it was really a nice scene with the start of the Alicization arc, where they in GGO faced their group and they are just above observing. And now that I know who is Vasago, I can see that he was eager to go and fight Kirito once again. Even in GGO, where there were no real stakes on it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I was about to say, I think talking about positives of War of Underworld real quick. Even though Vasadio's character isn't fully developed yet, one thing that I did like, and why I still think that he would have been a great kind of final fight, is just because he's kind of wild, and he kind of reminds me of he's kind of like the Joker to Kirito's Batman almost. Like he's kind of obsessed with him, and it creates a pretty good
dynamic.
Yeah, it creates a pretty good arch nemesis arc, which is better than most. Actually, I'll say almost all the villains in SAO, at least so far.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Are you insulting Sugo?
Yes. Yeah, insulting the king.
If you don't make it to the middle of the map, Kirito, I will rape your girlfriend. Man.
Who's that again? I wipe my memory of that arc, or at least of that character.
It's the guy who is King Oberon in Fairy Dance.
I'm just playing. I know who he is.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I have something to say.
Less said a bit, the better.
The best, yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Let's just say I have Vasago has my respect for one thing and one thing only.
Didn't rape anyone.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes, that's a huge upgrade for an SAO villain.
Massive upgrade for an SAO character. I am an SAO villain, therefore I must rape.
Yeah. I really agree that Vasago would have been a great Joker to Kirito's Batman, and that connection was slightly hinted when he tries to wake him up. That it's basically it's not as good killing all these people and defeating them if Kirito is not awake, not aware that he is there and he is winning, and he wanted to finish his fight, that epic fight that he was really he wanted really just an epic fight, not killing people for the sake of killing them. He wanted a rival, a proper rival, I think. Or that's my take on his character. That he really just wanted an equal.
Exactly, which I don't think is that deep even, but it's just fun. It makes him a little bit more entertaining to watch.
Development.
He's a much better villain than pretty much all the others we've had. And I mean, even to a certain extent, Gabriel is also better than a lot of the other villains, simply because we get to see any kind of backstory. Same with Vasago. We get to see his childhood. We get to see sort of where he's coming from. Even if he has a literal superpower and the ability to see people's souls, he still gets some backstory, so we sort of know where he's coming from and why he's so incredibly, apathetic to everything.
He's a good obstacle to overcome.
Yeah. He's an obstacle, and it's a good obstacle in that sense.
If you are talking about villains and mentioning the Fairy King. I think it was a nice callback that the technician that betrayed them. Betrayed that he was working for Sugo, that he was one of those tentacle monsters, and that says a lot about his character. But
yeah, dude, the whole tentacle monster scene is like the weirdest thing I've ever seen, because it's just like everyone else in Alfheim is a regular character. Even like Sugo, he's like Oberon the Fairy King. And then these two technicians come along and they're literal tentacle blobs. And I'm like, Reki, you did this for one reason only, and that was so they could lift Asuna up and scan her for the key card, you know, by like
quote unquote scanner.
Yeah, like that was the only, that was the only reason you made them into tentacle monsters. And you know this, we know this.
And now you reminded of me that one skin that I wanted to forget. Lifa is being tentacle raped.
Yeah,
by a woman, of all things, by a woman. That's next level.
Oh man, I forgot. I forgot about that. I literally blanked that scene out.
Just pressed it. Yeah.
The only reason I remember that because I remember I posted on here, I think on general, just basically me saying I just skipped 10 seconds. It's like,
you just skipped over
skip. Why is it still going on? Skip.
I watched and regretted.
Like it was like he tentacle got, you know, but it's like a Smash introduction. You know, he's like back, joins the fray, jumps into the fight again with a Lifa tentacle scene, which we all, you know, have been waiting so much for. Thank you, Reki.
Oh my god. Now that scene wasn't in. That scene wasn't in the light novels, was it?
Yes.
Like people have brought that up.
It was. I'm pretty sure it was in the light novel, but it was not in the web novel. So they must have asked him or something to add it in when they made the light novel.
That's wild.
I'm pretty sure that wasn't in the web novel.
One thing I found interesting, and correct me, Twisted, if it's different in the light novel, but I felt like Lifa's character was just dropped into the underworld just to be tentacle raped. Because
she was dropped for 2 reasons. One, to be raped, and the second one to be sorry, Reki, or well, you know what you're doing. You know, you're dropped in there so she could be abused by tentacles, and second, so that she could act as a plot point for the orcs.
Yeah.
Orc god be like, oh my god, we're monsters, and then, you know, turn on and then take his friends and be like, we're not going to sacrifice ourselves for this shit anymore.
That was also funny because why couldn't he have made another or underworld character shine on their own way like they did with the Pugilist? Because they didn't need the convenient real-world player to jump in and make them realize that there's a different way. So
no, yeah, they really didn't.
They could have just another Integrity Knight, or maybe just a normal underworld character fleshed out more. Like he did with what her name was?
Fata?
I think. Hard to remember. I always want to say Fanatio, but she's the another Integrity Knight girl.
Yeah, are you talking about the one that married Pugilist?
Yeah.
Pugilist? Yeah.
Shada, yeah.
Shada, that's her name. Yeah, because they had like a mini romance arc in the middle of this fighting, and I liked it. I actually didn't have anything against it. I thought in the beginning I was like, this is totally going to be forced, but somehow he made it at least a little bit believable, and it was kind of like I actually appreciate the fact that he put that in there.
Yeah, I like both of their characters because they felt so different from Reki's usual writing.
Yeah, it was.
And I really looked forward to what happens to them, and really was happy for them that they got their sort of happy ending. And I saw the Pugilist in a more new light. That wow, they are so interesting characters. If I wrote a fanfic in Alicization, I would totally work on them a lot more because they are just so fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, they return for Moon Cradle, though. I think they're like main characters.
They are.
Yes.
So if you haven't read Moon Cradle yet, you can go and do that. Although Moon Cradle is kind of like a hit or miss for some people. it's still, you know, it's if you want more development of the underworld, Mooncradle is definitely where you need to go.
Well, if you if you are talking about SAO as a whole, is a whole a hit and miss. So
Yeah, I mean, true. The entire thing.
after I catch up with the progressive books, I will definitely checking it out.
Yeah.
Looking
Read
forward
progressive
to
books.
it, but because I really like the War Underworld, that's really had been fleshed out more than any other world. A lot of potential there, and I really want to write a story centered in it. Sometime.
Yeah. It's a big writer's playground to work in. There's a lot of potential in that, which is probably why it's a lot of why it's some people's like favorite like SAO, you know, digital like universe compared to all the others. Is just because it's a lot more fleshed out in a way of where it's supposed to feel real. It's more isekai than all the other ones.
If you compare it for Alfheim Online, that was a lot of missed potential. GGO was also interesting, but really not developed aside from plot point. And SAO, he's trying to remake that mistake by writing progressive, but really Underworld just was really a developed world, and it was also the big difference that it didn't try to be an MMO. That it didn't try to fit into the game setting that really Reki apparently can't write normally or a good way.
Yeah. No, I feel like I'm actually a little bit. I agree with Fejj here. It's like the first part of Alicization almost convinced me that I was watching a regular fantasy show for a while. I didn't have like I felt like it was literally just this guy who was transported to a world and he had to like figure out, you know, where the fuck he was gonna go and what he was gonna do. And it was kind of like it was a good sense of like wonder and exploration because we didn't know anything about the world, so everything was a mystery. And I really kind of liked that. That aspect of it, and it was kind of fun to watch him just run around. As I mentioned in the last episode, ad nauseum, I had quite a few issues with that part as well. I.e., coming to the underworld and it's like, oh wait, my wife, who's that? I don't know who that is.
Well, if to be fair to Alicization and Reki, I think there's not a thing that in anime, movies, or anywhere where we would really say that we found nothing wrong with it, because we all have different tastes, different things that we like to emphasize. So it was really good compared to the previous one. So I could see, I could forgive a few mistakes and faults here and there.
Yeah, I definitely think we're also kind of, since we're on the tangent of Alicization, the first. I kind of agree. I think that it does have its faults, quite a few. It's one of the reasons why I haven't gone back to rewatch it in a minute. But I remember the first time watching it and kind of just being just so involved in like, how does this world work, you know. And also I like that there was somewhat of a clear quest in mind. I think for all the jabs that Reki gets for his writing, I think one thing that he does extremely effectively is start a story. I think he does a really good job of introducing you to a world, giving you a clear-cut goal, and then basically pushing you on your way. He does a really good job of giving you a promise of what the story is going to be. And I think Alicization, at least the first half of the Alicization story, kind of do that for me. I think in a perfect world, if we were watching the anime, there would have been more episodes to develop the relationship between Kirito and Eugeo, because I do think that where we get to the finale against Quinella, and where Eugeo kind of turns for a little bit, does kind of feel just a little bit out in left field, at least in the anime. But it's one of the reasons why I like Alicization and War of Underworld Part 1, is because I feel like in certain moments where it counts, the story takes its time a little more, as opposed to in SAO and GGO, where things kind of, you get your good intro episode, but then things start moving at a breakneck pace for the plot. And I think that Alicization and War of Underworld Part 1 kept me the most invested because I kind of got a little bit more insight into the daily lives of the characters, and that gets me a little bit more attached to them. Like we see Kirito and Yujiro running errands like as the sword disciples, and then we with part 1 we see Alice like kind of finding a way to live after the events of the cathedral. I think that those are all really good like character moments, and it at least kept me engaged when the actual war part started happening in the story. I think that things get a little crazy when we get to like War of Underworld part 2 and we start getting into like the fighting and the mechanics of the fights and all that jazz, but I agree, there's at least some really interesting bits here. You know, there is some good storytelling elements to learn from, I think, at least still in these two parts.
My only, going back to the villains as well, my only, especially with terms of story, like one thing I do wish which was at least developed on a certain way or changed is the reason why they're there. Granted, because guessing, as I posted, basically all they're there for is to get the cube. That's basically the only reason they're there, and for some reason that can help develop weapons and technology out of that or something. But if it was a different reason why they're there, perhaps I don't know. But even if it wasn't just that, just dealing the technology by itself and understanding why that works, that would be fine. But for them just to get the specific cube, which is Alice, that just doesn't sit right for me in terms of why they're there, because it seems way too much of a like a million one things which could go wrong, or diplomatically to begin with, just for that. It seems too much of a risk for the reward to get out of it. Because if it goes wrong, it's a diplomatic incident between two major powers. That's what you want.
That's why they hired Gabriel and his team, because they're a private, they're a PMA, so they're like a PMC. They're a private military contractor, so they cannot be tied back to America.
I guess it's on paper, but they're still being paid by them.
Of course, they're still being paid, but then they're going to do what America does best when they get caught. They're going to be like, hey, it wasn't us.
It wasn't us, bro.
What do you mean? You prescription glasses? Bro, it wasn't us.
I mean,
I think to White Panthers.
Let's always snake where you need him.
If you think about it, one part why they are after the cube only and they don't try to understand the mechanics, because they are just a hit and grab kind of mission, that they grab the important part of the work from the Japanese. So even if the Americans can't use it for themselves, the Japanese don't have it. They can't use it. They can't work. Their work can't continue. And as for the diplomatic incident, just think about it. Even if they fail and they had to retreat, but you can't tie them to the Americans can come out and say, hey, you clearly can't defend your super awesome weapon in work, so let us give you a hand as allies or something like this.
To Wise Panzer's credit too, I do think that I think I like the goal at the start, because at first it's just, Kirito needs to be in here because, he had brain trauma, and for whatever reason, I try not to think too logically about some things, especially in, sci-fi fiction. For whatever reason, like being in the Fluctlight or being in the underworld is going to fix his Fluctlight so that he can wake up again. And in the meantime, he's going to go help Yujiro out to, free Alice. I'm like, all right, cool. That's a solid goal. I will admit, kind of like what Wise Panzer is saying, whenever it starts getting to more about the light cube extraction, it lands for me at the very end, but I do think kind of in between things start to get a little convoluted. It doesn't bother me that much, but I do think that it's the combination of, we got to get Alice out, but at the same time she has to go to this specific console that's on the other side of on the other side of the underworld, and then these other guys want her, and then there's this whole system to try to extract her. It works because in the plot, it works for me because plot wise it gives us something to do, but I do think that the goals kind of get a little shaky.
I never actually understood that part in particular, because they say they need to go to the World's End altar and to log Alice out. And I'm like, okay, so they've made this whole project where they're attempting to create true AI by making them break their own programming essentially, and thus turn sentient or whatever. Which is why they have the whole right eye barrier or whatever. Or actually, no, that was put there by Saboteur.
That was Saboteur.
Yeah, okay, well, they're just supposed to turn sentient, right? So why would you put the log off point at the very end of the map? That seems like an incredibly just like plot convenient thing to do. Just like, oh yeah, we just put it like way the fuck out here, dude.
It's definitely a plot convenient thing, but it doesn't really bother me too much. Like in the back of my head, it's like, oh, that's totally plot, but at the same time, I'm like, you know what? If we get a good story out of it, like I'm fine.
Yeah. Well, I'm not defending it, but as for my own headcanon, I think that because they want the AIs to fight for them, right? Because they want to make an AI who can kill people, basically. So it would make sense that to force the humans and the Dark Territory fight so the true AI, the true AI would fight through the Dark Territory, and that fighting in the war and basically killing people would force it to become a true AI, and it would kind of make sense that it reaches the end of the world after in the heart of the Dark Territory, and there it could log out from there. I'm not defending because it's clearly plot. That I agree, but that's my just own headcanon.
That would be a pretty good explanation for it too. I think. Yeah.
I must say that the whole ocean turtle, stealing Alice, the whole conflict that was going on in there, as we were, in the underworld fighting at the same time. The thing that I really liked about that, or at least appreciated with that, is that Kiko actually gets to get off his fucking ass and do something for once. All this time, he's just been sitting there and he's sending kids into these cyber missions. He's like, yeah, I'm just gonna send this 15-year-old kid in to die. I don't give a fuck. He actually has to do something for once, and that was very nice to see him sort of step up.
I also liked his character that despite appearing just a very lazy, uncaring, laid-back guy, in the end, he really seems to care about Kirito and his subordinates, that he really risks his life, looks after them, and if it needs be, he will take a risk himself. So I really began to like his character more than just the plot convenience to involve Kirito in everything else.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
I appreciated that he got more of a role and actually had to do something. Yeah. I like that a lot. I like the fact that he attempted to do like a dual storyline thing where he has stuff going on in the underworld and then he has stuff going on in the real world at the same time with the invasion of the ocean turtle. What I found in practice was that every time there was a episode, you'll go a week and wait for the next episode, and then the next episode finally drops, and it's an ocean turtle episode, and I'm like, oh, please, no. Oh, my God. Ocean turtle shit. Oh, I don't care. Put me back in the underworld. Like, I don't know why. I didn't have a problem with it from, like, a story perspective. It just wasn't very entertaining to me.
It would have been better to balance it, like the third of the episode got the ocean turtle side and the rest got the underworld. So it would keep the storyline going, but would keep you entertained.
Yeah,
and that might be because the ocean turtle segments aren't as flashy. I think that's the right word, flashy as the War of Underworld segments, because because like the War of Underworld segments have they have the sword play, the magic. They just have a lot more. There's a lot more possibilities of what you can see in there versus logically in the ocean turtle, and you kind of know that in the back of your head.
Yeah, because the ocean turtle part seems really diverged from the rest of the story because it's set in the real world, confined in the rules of the real world, and more like a background thing going on, that they try to save Kirito while everything is going to shit. So
And that's actually something I believe we just have to talk about is a vegetable Kirito, Comatose Kirito.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something we just have to touch on because it's so incredibly.
Sorry, Twisted. I think we should make a small break and read a snippet, because we would never read the rest of the snippets if I don't stop you there.
Yeah, we can go to this.
I'm supposed to be leading this as well, but you're just going on. There's plenty to talk about, so.
Yeah, I agree, and I really enjoy it, but I thought that we are talked about for an hour, and we should really take a small break to reorganize our thoughts.
Yeah. We will return back to vegetable Kirito in a few minutes.
Yeah. After I make a fool of myself trying to read Retold, and hopefully Agent won't try to hunt me down. Hopefully that mood will help his mood.
If he does, he'll probably tie you down to a chair and just read off some medieval tactics for you for a couple of hours.
I wouldn't mind, really, because it's interesting, especially in his Retold. It's really interesting, despite being so different from a normal SAO, and a nice change of pace, truly. Okay, should I give a small summary about Retold?
I'll say do it after you've read a bit on it.
Okay. I'm dying. Blah, 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 blah.
You're dying.
Yeah. Okay, let's try to use Tiger's voice actor exercises from
Yeah, it was good.
from yesterday.
Oh yeah, those exercises. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Klein looked at both players' health. Kirito was at a red 20 HP. Von Iver was at a yellow 25 HP. The two were very skilled combatants, almost equal to one another. Wasn't the foreigner an actual swordmaster in real life? How was Kirito able to be on par with him? That could only mean that the actual Kirito in life is some sort of swordmaster too. How lucky was he to see two masters duking it out? Despite the spectacle, he realized that both of them were in a pretty bad shape. Kirito was in the defensive, Von Iver was in the offensive. He had to do something before the two killed each other all over a stupid boar. That's it! Pulling out his knife, he began to skin the mini-boss. Focusing entirely on the task, he had able to pull out one mama boar hide. Excellent. He turned to the two still fighting. He wasn't sure which was which, but one of them had been able to disarm the other, considering one of the longswords was a few meters away from the battle. They were grappling each other in a pose that reminded him of an MMA match. Kirito was down on one knee, holding a longsword like a pole in. Von Iver was over him, gauntleted arm pushing into the blade. Same arm was holding a dagger that was dangerously close to Kirito's face. His other hand was on the dagger's pommel. Looking at their HP, crap, they both only had 8 HP left. Stop fighting! He pulled out the white blue hide and his knife. I'm going to cut it so we can just share it 50-50. Everyone wins! As if only noticing his existence, both swordsmen looked at the man. Their eyes widened as the knife went to the hide. No! They both yelled. Too late. Snap. The mama boar hide, excellent, vanished in a spray of polygons. Okay, I'm dead.
Bravo. Bravo.
Nice.
Well, okay, time for a summary. Aincrad Retold from Agent 94. 96. I'm always remembering the number, right? Wrong. So, basically, the story is a rewrite of SAO, but it's really as far as you can be from SAO in a way. because Againt really writes a very immersive and very different kind of Sword Art Online that is presented in Reki's writing. I think you could easily call his work an original work if you just change the names of the SAO characters to random other names. Right, Twisted?
Yeah, I pretty much agree. Againt very much enjoys writing. He has one thing in common with Reki, and that is that neither one of them have ever played an MMO. And he sort of, except that, unlike Reki, who tries to mimic MMOs, Againt imagines what his dream MMO would be like, and then he makes Retold into that. And he spends so much time going like in detail on how the different systems work and how this game that he has constructed is sort of put together. So you get like, by the time you reach the current end point of Retold, which it's still being updated, so it's gonna take you a while. It's like 300,000 words long. So by the time you reach that end point, you have a very good understanding of his version of SAO because he spent so much time explaining it to you. So if you're looking for more SAO but a very different kind of SAO, then I would definitely recommend reading Retold because it's just like a new game essentially.
Yes, it's basically if SAO was not SAO, but it has a few elements, has some similar characters with very different developments, and really is a joy to read, especially if you get bored of the same kind of self-inserts and basically fanfics set in the same world over and over. Because it's not just have a personal touch and understanding established world. Againt really wrote a new world and all parts associated with it. And
cool.
And I really one thing I really like is because he really inspired me to write my own story, the SAO Star Wars crossover, because I really want to write a world, even if I base it on something else that's truly my own. And that's what he made. And I really respect him for it. And I definitely advise anyone to read his story, even if it's sometimes it's scary because you read and realize that you are reading a 40,000 words chapter.
Yeah, that's the only thing, saying that some people may be turned off by the large chapters, but if you end up pushing through, especially the earlier chapters, it really gets going. I wouldn't
recommend reading Retold now though, because it's currently being rewritten or reworked entirely by Tiger Cry and Againt, and they're publishing the new version on AO3. So I would recommend waiting until they get that shit up and running before you read it, because it's going to be a much better experience.
Yeah, I'm already on Fejj. It's too late for me.
All the few ones I've actually managed to start reading, and it's been completely rewritten. Lovely.
Well, it's not being rewritten. It's more like it's just being improved. It's like a 2.0. It still has the same story, but it's just being
edited.
Because the first it's being edited heavily because the first like 10 chapters of Retold are either way too long or way too full of grammar mistakes because they were written in 2013. So, you know, back when Againt had virtually no experience writing anything. So
basically right now.
And now he's like 8 years in, so it's obviously his writing has gotten a lot better, which is why, you know, his later stuff is considerably better than the earlier.
Merchant Prince. That's all I can say. You want recent stuff? Merchant Prince.
Yeah.
That's fair enough.
Yeah. All right.
I'll hold off my current reading and wait until that's fully done.
Yeah. Well, I think we had a good long talk about Agent Retold. Let's go back to the original topic: vegetable Kirito.
Vegetable Kirito. Veggie are online.
The beginning of the arc, I actually really enjoyed. For some reason, I really enjoyed it. The beginning of the arc,
I think most people did.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's something about it.
Yeah, it's like it's refreshing to see
Kirito not shining.
Yeah, exactly. It's like he's not just hogging the spotlight because now he's fucking Comatose. So it's like he can't take the spotlight because he's in a wheelchair and just can't say anything.
Yeah.
So it was very refreshing, and it gave a lot of room for character development for the other characters that aren't Kirito.
Yes.
To like sort of come in and really show that Sword Art Online can work even though our favorite self-insert character isn't there.
Well, he's there, but he can't really do
He's
much.
there, but he's not really there, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's why War of Underworld Part 1 worked so well for me. I think that might be the secret sauce right there, because
Fejj and Kirito.
yeah, I think it really is, because first it was totally unexpected for me, because it takes balls to have a main character who has been pretty much the sole focus of the series for that long, and then suddenly just cut him out of it. Because while other characters do get spotlight, like Sinon and Asuna, like, you know, throughout the series as a whole, we really haven't gotten a deviation into other characters. And the fact that War of Underworld Part 1 took that risk, and I would say they actually did it pretty well. I mean, it gave us a chance to look at more of the characters who were living in the underworld, learn more about them and their motivations, where they come from. And I think that might be the strength of it. You know, not only does the story slow down, but we get more characters, and this feels good.
Yeah, it's especially like the focus around Alice as well. It definitely, granted, there was a bit of development in the Alicization, but then in War of Underworld, it really started to build her up in terms of actually becoming an all-right character to me, to being high up and almost to the point of saying one of my favorites in just in the space of those 3 episodes.
Yeah, it's Alice, and then I feel really bad because I really like this character, but the green-haired kid, what was his name?
Oh yeah, Renly.
Renly, bro, I fucking love Renly. And he's such a minor character, but I mean, he has a full arc, you know.
Yeah,
and
Renly was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. And when he has this moment, I'm just like, holy shit! Like, yeah, that's awesome. Same echoing the sentiments of Alice. I mean, at first I was afraid that Alice was going to be, you know, the typical like SAO girl, waifu. At least she doesn't start that way, thankfully. But I really like. Sadly, yes. But for a while in Part 1, I was like, shit, is Alice my favorite character? Because I really liked her having to get by, you know, kind of being ostracized by both her community and the Integrity Knights at the Royal Capital. Her relationship with her dad and then her sister. Also, biggest crime is that we don't really get a resolution with her and her dad, but that's a whole other tangent later. And I don't know, I just really liked her. I like when she shows up to protect her home, even though they cast her out. I think that says a lot about her.
Definitely.
And yeah, and just those moments with Alice in the first half of Underworld is just, oh, it's so good, man. I was like, shit, if SAO was like this all the time, I would be,
way
love
more
it.
interested.
Yeah.
I think, but I really like that basically Alice was Kirito for the first half of War of the Underworld. She was there to basically move the plot along. She was there to save the day when it really got. She got a super awesome attack that decimated the whole army too. So she was good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed in the beginning when she was first introduced in like in the original Alicization part, like the first part. I was like, oh yes, Walmart Saber. And I immediately kind of just wrote her off because I was like, okay, if Saber knockoff, moving on, without even thinking about the fact that SAO actually came out before Fate. But you know,
Discount Saber.
Fate did come out first.
Yeah,
Fate did.
We had a discussion.
Yeah, because the visual novel came out.
Yeah.
2004.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think the web novel of Alicization came around 2009. And
because that was 2004. So Fate Stay Night was actually first.
Yeah.
But I really, I just really enjoyed the fact that she got the time to actually be established more as a character. Sort of, you know, you got to see that, you know, she has all these problems and she has all these things that she kind of has to, you know, accept and deal with. And it was really cool to see Kind of funny that a little sad that she was ended up being just another introduction to the harem.
Yeah.
Just like
Well,
another one.
I have to say that what I really liked her, because at the start of Alicization, even before the anime, when I first started reading the light novel and then stopped halfway, one of my worries was that we got a lot of new characters, and the old characters, they are just nowhere, and it felt really bad because a lot of established characters could have been developed more, and they just throw them out the window and introduced us a lot of them, and I thought that I wouldn't care about them. And then Eugeo, how do you say his name? Yujo?
Yujiro?
Yeah. I think
Sword boy.
I kind of liked him, but from the first moment, I had one problem with him, that should have been Klein. And with Alice, and that's true.
Yeah.
To this day, I said that should have been Klein. Kirito's best friend is Klein. But
we wish it was Klein. In reality, Kirito's best friend is himself because
or his sword.
No, I think he's onto something though, because a lot of people talk about Yujiro, what happens to him at the end of Alicization, as like this really tragic moment.
I didn't really.
To me, it just shocked me more than anything. I actually think, and I know that there's a couple fan fictions that go this route, I think War of Underworld would have been a lot stronger if Yujiro had been there, like during the story, if he had more time to develop.
Died, but he could have died later.
Yeah,
exactly.
When you get to the War of Underworld, nobody fucking dies.
No one important. Yeah,
everyone just makes it out alive, and I'm like, bruh.
Berkuli dies, but I think it.
Yeah, Berkuli dies. He kicks the bucket, but I mean.
Oh, Berkuli.
He was first introduced.
Yeah, but I think it would have been much more better if Yujo died against Wasagao, and that would have been what caused Kirito to awaken, because that scheme with his spirit and or ghost or whatever, and that
it would have been really cool if Yujo died against Wasago, and then Yujo dies against Wasago, Kirito goes all fucking crazy, so he just goes all out against Wasago, he kills Wasago. And then afterwards, he you see him struggle with the fact that he went completely crazy and just like killed him. And then he has to sort of struggle with that for a while. Like, even though he was Poe and his arch nemesis, he now has trouble like sleeping at night because he remembers just how good it felt to kill him.
Yeah.
And
that would have been fantastic.
Yeah, he just added even more dimension to his character, but that's the kind of shit that Reki don't do.
Definitely.
I think that's the most maddening part. I mean, and this is coming from someone who I still like War of Underworld arc, but that's probably the most maddening part of it, is that there's so much potential, and I think that there's, again, like, that's why I like part 1 so much, is because finally you get character development, even for new characters, and you think to yourself, oh shit, so Reki actually can like write characters. Like, he can do the motivation, he can do the backstory, he can do the choices and decisions that they make and the struggles that they go through. I think that again, that's kind of the crime with Yujiro, is because he's supposed to be this really huge regret for Kirito moving forward, especially at the end of War of Underworld where Kirito gets back. I remember I was watching the episode where it ends and he's back home, and then it kind of all hits him again of what just all happened, where he's mourning for Yujiro again, because now that all of his memories of probably getting past that trauma in the underworld for the 200 years are gone, he has to kind of relive the grief again. And I always thought that was like a really good like character moment, and it is an emotional moment, don't get me wrong. I did feel something, but I still just wish that they had either spent more time with Yujiro and Alicization to characterize him a little better and make him his own character, or just hold on to him through War of Underworld and then make that play.
That's definitely one thing that I want to say, that we may be have a lot of problems with Alicization and War of the Underworld, and we bitch a lot, but it's definitely we are definitely have problems with it because we like it, I think.
Oh
Because-
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
We
it's
wouldn't be writing SAO fanfiction if we didn't feel something for this goddamn IP.
Yes.
yeah, it's
There is something about SAO that has resonated with all of us at some
Yes.
point, which is why
Yeah.
we're here complaining about it, because it's like,
We like
you
it so
want it
much,
to be
we want
better.
it better.
Yeah, you want it to be better. You want it to do better, and especially when you know that it's capable of doing better, because we have progressive to point to and be like, hey,
Yeah.
look.
See, it can be done. Yeah.
It's
yeah, great ideas, poor execution.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Improve the execution, and job done.
And
Yeah,
to
it's
that credit, yeah, that's why I like part 1 so much, because I think it does get a lot right.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. We haven't talked about the ending of the War of the Underworld arc, and
Oh yeah,
I
when
just-
Alex left the Earth.
They could have removed the final.
Yes.
Personally, they could have removed the final
Yes.
episode, and it would have been fine.
you
It would
know
have been
what my main
fine.
problem is with, because that was the perfect moment that he could have ended Kirito's journey. Kirito should have gotten, okay, I had enough fighting for worlds, let's go
No,
and
but
play
then-
just a game, and then he could have introduced someone new, or maybe used or maybe, listen to me, I know it's heresy, but he could have used another of the main cast as a main character.
You know what would have been really shocking if War of Underworld was actually the final arc of SAO? If Kirito and Asuna, when they're like at the end there and they stay behind and they say like, oh, if you stay here you're gonna have to be in the world for like 300 years and we don't know if your brain can handle all that information, right? What
Yeah.
would have been really shocking was if like they stayed behind and they lived in the underworld for 300 years, and then when they were going to like get them out again, because it's only been like a couple of minutes in the real world or whatever,
They die.
then they're dead. They're both just dead. And they sort of just passed away in the underworld towards the end of their life, and their brain just shut down and refused to boot up again. And that's kind of how they ended, where it sort of goes full circle in the sense that Kirito used, he went to SAO originally for like escapism, and then he ends up living out his entire life essentially in a virtual world,
that
or
world,
dying there
yeah.
It could
with
have been a
his
good
love
call.
of his life.
It would have been a good callback to the end of season 1, where they both died basically. Kayaba is saying congratulations, and the world disappears around them. And that could have a really good scheme that 300 years later they are just sitting in the cottage or somewhere, and the world around them begins to disappear, and they are just, okay, let's end this once and for all. And they are just...
I think on the overall topic, like there's a lot of interesting ways that, like, overall War of Underworld easily could have been like the ending, I guess, of like the series as a whole.
It was originally.
It was originally, right?
So, I mean, it was in the web novel, it was the ending. Like, after the War of Underworld, there was nothing more. And then Reki was like, man, I just played Rust, and I really want to write about it, Damn, I just played the best Minecraft playthrough, and I want to write this shit down.
He couldn't make a YouTube channel, so he decided to continue on the plots.
He was like, okay, you know what? Kirito and Asuna play Minecraft? Question mark? Just like, his editor is like, oh God, save us all.
But what I found really interesting that I would really look forward to, but at the same time I really dread what it will become, because I haven't read Mooncradle and what's the newest arc? Its name?
United Ring.
Yes, haven't read that one either. That at the anime that where they basically how do they call it? Star Kirito or the Kirito with
Star King.
Star King Kirito.
Ah, yes, sorry. Star King Kirito and Kayaba meeting. That would be awesome to see. Hey.
I think as well. So when the last episode, it's like, oh, they return back to the underworld. They're in space, and then there's two spaceships fighting some D&D abominations.
Yeah, some
What happened? What happened the last like
And they
300
actually-
years?
They explain that in much more detail in the novels, to be fair. because they go
Yeah.
and there's like a solid like 150 pages or something, just 50 to 100 pages where they just explain what happened in the underworld during those 50 years.
Oh,
Good.
really
years.
looking
I
forward.
was so confused. It's
Yeah,
just
'cause I would, if you just watch the anime, I can totally see why you would be confused as
I
fuck.
have so
Yeah.
many questions.
Yeah, you're just sitting there like, where did the space?
What the hell?
Kirito space program? Question.
Yeah.
I think that's a delineation, like I think that's just a problem with adaptation, you know.
Adaptation, yeah. I mean, they were already at the end of their rope, so they couldn't really, make a whole episode just dedicated to explaining the underworld. And I don't think we're ever going to see Moon Cradle adapt.
No, unless it's a movie, like I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't
the
see that
first day.
happening. So if you want to know more about the underworld, you just got to read like the last novel and read Moon Cradle, because they gives a lot more sort of it just fleshes out the underworld a lot more.
But that last episode was, I think, really was unneeded. That because, okay, that leaves the whole story open that there will be a continuation, but that just really messes the whole feeling of the rest of the war of the underworld.
Yeah.
I mean, up until the point that Alice and Kirito talk, and that was a little good skin in real world.
Yeah.
But that whole thing that, even that part with the Stark and Kirito and Higa, his name is the scientist.
Higa.
That I would have left that part cool, because leave the story
They were cool.
open. But that
When they
space
were
fight,
each other.
it look at cool, but I just see it. Why? Why? Why do you do this to me?
Yeah.
I know I can't help but think that the next arc of SAO will be something like Star Wars or Star Trek MMO.
No, well, it won't. Let me tell you that much.
It won't. I mean, I wouldn't mind if it was, but like, I don't think it is. Yeah.
It isn't.
Okay,
no,
at least
it's
I-
not. And
I
I was
don't-
actually when I saw that final episode, and it's at the end there, Kirito walks towards the door and he opens it up and it just says Kirito will return. I was like, but does he really have to? Though?
Yes.
Kirito will return, but does he have to?
Yeah, you can, but should you?
Should you?
Should you?
Exactly. You first have to ask yourself if this was actually a good idea.
Yeah. I mean,
And that's kind of the crazy thing. By the time War of Underworld is ended, throughout the arc, like, we've established so many new characters with good characterization that it kind of does lend the question. It's like, do we have to follow Kirito for the next arc? Like, we could.
see
Let's
another
solo
SAO
grind.
anime, except this time they're playing like fucking Minecraft. So do I really want to see that?
It's like, can we just go to space? I wouldn't mind. Could we go to space with like a War of Underworld character for like the next arc? That would be kind of cool with me. I wouldn't even mind. Hell, just make Alice like the main character of the next arc, and work with her a little bit more. I agree. She is in the next arc, yeah. But I mean, like, if they had made the decision and were like, okay, we're gonna make Alice the main character now, and we're gonna follow this space route, like this arc in the underworld. Furthermore, I'd be like, all right, cool, do what you want. I agree with a lot of the sentiments here. That I personally didn't mind the ending. I think that the final episode of War of Underworld does have some really good points that got me excited for the next arc. Of course, like Star King, the prospect of Star King meeting with Kaiba, that's actually one of the main inspirations for the fan fiction that I've been working on.
yeah, definitely.
The aspect of Kirito and Alice finally catching up, also seeing Kirito's parents for once, strangely, like,
That was really cool.
We saw
actually.
it was strangely, yeah.
We saw
Well,
the
there's
mother before
parents.
that, but the father is never. I thought it would have been a really cliche anime plot that his father abandoned them or died or something.
Yeah. Like, it was a surprisingly good talk with his parents, because they haven't really been around at all, and then he just sort of sits him down and like, okay, so you play a lot of fucking video games, man.
You should have focused on school.
And every time you play a goddamn video game, something goes wrong. Like, every time, man. You can't just log into like RuneScape without ending up in some world-altering, politically motivated, suits.
Time to stop.
You gotta go to college, son.
I think,
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah.
I think the funny thing with that talk that for once, Kirito wasn't responsible for it because he just got stabbed, almost got killed, and he just
Yeah.
put into the underworld. That it really wasn't his decision in any way. The other times, yes. But
Yeah.
no, for once, it wasn't his fault.
Wasn't actually kid. And it is kind of refreshing that his dad is like, you kind of need to focus on grades because you do all these like amazing stuff in VR, but none of this is gonna make you any money. So,
Yeah, I like that
you need
attitude.
to go to
can.
college and you need to get a job, and he's like, shit, you're right. I can't just play video games.
I like that added aspect of realism there. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's also nice that the dad is like acknowledges, he's like, yeah, we know our son's a hero, but we also want him to have like a good life. And I'm like,
Yeah,
damn, those are good parents.
It's not even his parents. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
But one thing
It's-
I find funny is just all this seriousness is going on, but then there's just Alice in the corner.
Yeah, Alice is just the fucking Detroit become human in the corner there. Just like,
Alice is the corner waifu.
like, oh, okay. There was really, I don't know. I have so many mixed opinions when it comes to Alice coming to the real world as a literal robot.
Yeah.
It's way too many questions, personally.
Yeah, I
Way
have so many questions, and
And I
it's just
think from your response, the light novel didn't really explain much.
no, it didn't really explain much either. It's kind of like she comes to the real world to advocate for, AI rights, essentially. Like, we are people, we need this. And then she's like, okay, I've done this for like a week now. Now I'm going to play video games with Kirito. And it's kind of like...
I need my husbando.
Exactly. It's like, okay, and I'm still going to, romance Kirito. And there was a very weird scene in the last episode where they're asleep or something. And she tries to, or she cuddles with him or something in the last episode. And it's like, how does that work precisely? Like, what?
Yeah.
She's a robot. What does that feel like? Is it just like metal? Just like, oh, yes, you're so cold. Holy shit.
No comment. Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like those aspects, like it's funny. Like I think that the press conference scene with the Alice revealing her real body and everything, like it did raise some like, like so fast, but at the same time I was like, okay, like we have a machine that like translates people's souls. I'm gonna like just check my brain out at the door real quick and just roll with it.
That suspension disbelief factor way up already.
Way up, yeah.
And
So
yeah.
So like that, it's okay. I think that the only thing in the last episode that kind of threw me off is like what you guys said, the space battle.
Yes, definitely.
I don't really think it needed to be there, because I understand where it's leading into, but it just kind of gives you whiplash at the end, and then all of a sudden the credits roll, and you're just like, wait, what?
I mean,
They kill
about
they kill the Cthulhu monster, and then they teleport to the world, and boom, end credits.
it really was strange
Yeah.
because the other seasons at their end didn't really lead into the next this much. Like this, and just space battle. Okay, next season when? Never. 10 years later, and it's just really teasing us, and not in a good way.
Yeah. I think the worst part that makes me kind of worried for the last or final arc of SAO and or the final season, which is the one that's coming up next, is that the first novel in Untitled Ring just wasn't very good. Like, it really wasn't. It was a considerable step down from Alicization, which makes me worried that
or
Reki...
just GGO step down.
No, not fairy dance levels of step down, because that's impossible to remaster.
No, never.
It would be impressive. It would be impressive.
It would be impressive if you managed to make something like that again. But it's like, it is a considerable step down, and it's just not as interesting. So I am worried. I don't. Obviously, there's way more books out in Japanese than English at the moment, so we just gotta wait and see. But I am hoping that Untitled Ring picks up and actually turns out to be a worthy arc, because I'm going to be triggered if I feel that Alicization should be where SAO ended.
Yeah.
Once season 4 is done and we have Untitled Ring all finished up, and I'm like, man, I really wish they just ended it after season 3. I'm going to be a little disappointed.
Yeah, because season 3 feels like the end. It's so climactic. All the returning characters show up.
Yeah,
Hell, they even threw in like an AG cameo in there too. It's like, shit, we're just throwing everybody in this arc. It feels like it's supposed to be the end. Exactly. It's the portal scene.
Yeah,
essentially.
Exactly. It's like everyone just come in here, let's end this shit, and then season 4 is there, and like, oh
shit, we got more shit to do.
shit, we're playing Minecraft now, boys. All right.
Sorry for getting off topic, but I had a thing about a previous topic about Alice and her being a robot that basically wants to bang Kirito. I think it was just made because they couldn't do it with Yui because he was the child. He got the child position, and they really needed an AI to want to bang Kirito. And this just feels like that really just Alice made into the love interest because they needed to fulfill the cliche.
Yeah, and that's actually true. That actually reminds me of something I think KD pointed out in the chat a while back, where he said that his favorite scene in War of Underworld was the Kirito relationship contest between all the girls.
Oh yeah.
And where they're just like Kirito is in this wagon, and then all the 4 girls just spend the night sitting around his comatose body and just talking to each other for like a full night. And it was very absurd to me how you have these 4 girls who are all talking about how much they love Kirito and have supported Kirito, and his literal spouse, fiance, sitting there, and she's like, yeah, I totally agree with all of this. This is all cool. You guys can romance my husband as much as you want to.
Yeah.
No issue.
That's like, okay, I give permission because I will be first wife.
Exactly.
Yeah, like she knows she's the top, so it's all good.
She's the top. Yes, I love it. Twisted, I will really put it into the smooth. She will be the top.
Exactly. Also, I was like, yeah, I'm down with how many are we now? 7-way? Yeah, I'm down with that.
I think it may be soon 6 or 8 or 10.
Yeah, exactly.
It
Wait,
keeps stacking up.
let's just count
It's like
that.
that's the best part. It's like from the SAO bloopers, the actual dub bloopers, and when Xenon is introduced in the second season of the dub, and they have a blooper scene where it's like, they introduce her to the rest of the cast in the cafe, in the Dicey Cafe, and Asuna is like, welcome to the harem. So, have you been tested for STDs yet? It's like the most relatable SAO romance scene. That's pretty much how it goes.
Honestly, I kind of like blinked out, just like with Sugo. I kind of blinked out the robot. Like I kind of blocked out the robot Alice romance because I was just like, no, that's downgrading her character a little bit, and you did all this really good work at the beginning. So
you have Alice, the strong, swordsman from the, from the underworld, and then you have, the robot Alice, which is like Kirito, just like, oh yes, fleshlight, robotic fleshlight.
Yeah, I just kind of blinked. I just realized that I blinked that scene out. Like I just pretended like it didn't exist. My bad.
Yeah.
Twisted, quick question. Should we look at Argo as canon member of the harem?
No, not yet.
No.
Not yet. Even in progressive, she hasn't gotten that far yet. I have a feeling, especially after I saw the illustrations from Volume 7, which is yet to be translated, that Reki is definitely he's working towards the Argo introduction into the harem.
Yes, we need that.
For sure. He's definitely working for that, but as of right now, she's not in the harem yet.
The word is yet.
It's gonna happen. I mean, Kirito, he just, for some reason, even though he's like a shy, introverted nerd, he just radiates big dick energy. So all the girls just get like naturally attracted to him.
One thing I'm really surprised that Yuki from Mother's Rosario didn't end up in the harem.
I'm glad she didn't, because Yuki is my favorite character in the show.
Kirito is like, I added an AIDS patient to my horror. What are you gonna do?
Asuna can have her.
Exactly. She can be Asuna's plaything. I have so many others.
Low key.
Exactly. No, I mean, Mother's Rosario is like, yeah. So I like the fact that Kirito wasn't really in that. I mean, it's kind of annoying that Asuna sort of like everything that happened in Mother's Rosario is because Kirito was kind of just there to give Asuna the information she needed. She was like, yeah, so I figured out where she lived, what her name is, what she's doing, and here you could just have that information and go.
Asuna's like, should I call the police?
Should I call police? Kirito's like, no, please don't do that. They'll find my hacking tools. Don't know. Also known as my daughter, Yui.
My only thing is that basically of all the people who've managed to beat Kirito 1-on-1 on a fight, everyone's died apart from one, and that's Alice.
Oh shit. She's on. That's a death.
Death flag. Yep.
It's happening.
Ultimate death flag.
So
I think actually no. That's a completely different topic.
yeah. So yeah, just
that's cool.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna mention that on this episode of the podcast at least because we're not. I don't know how many people have actually read Unital Ring, if anyone. So
I've read summaries.
Not yet.
Yeah.
We'll do.
Yeah, because I mean, there's obviously a lot to talk about when it comes to Unital Ring being the start of a new arc and everything. So it's No, but I'm not going to talk about that here because Underworld.
fair enough. But yeah, I don't know. It just seems a bit odd saying that there's only one person who's still survived, which is beating Kirito 1-on-1 on fights.
Okay, I just want to mention that I really looked into it, and I think I have all the harem members listed, and it's 9.
You have all the horror members.
You had to research it.
That says so much. Wow.
Look at it, because if I missed anyone or someone is not really in the harem, but such is an
we got
mention.
we got official and unofficial members. Oh snap.
Okay.
If you go unofficial, then you can add Argo as one.
Yeah, Austin, Asachi, Liz, Silica, Leafa, Xenon, Alice, Ironia, and Sortie. Yeah, there's quite a few there.
If we could have Sachi back and have all of them gathered, and it would be 10-way.
Yeah, that's a lot of. Damn, that's literally a 10-way. An actual 10-way. Kirito is there like, hey, don't. Kirito is just there like, don't hate the player, hate the game.
We have to write it sometime, somehow.
Oh, dude, I can't write a 10-way scene. Holy shit. How the fuck would I do that? It'd be like 20,000 words
for
long.
Science.
Every single character needs their own introduction, and that would be hell.
About to just back out of that like Broccoli did.
Immediately.
Just dip.
Broccoli, man, what a character.
Oh, fucking love Broccoli. Sorry, Panzer mentioned Broccoli, and I just thought back to the fight, which is might be my favorite fight in all of SAO.
Definitely.
Maybe.
It
was a really good fight.
Oh, really? We almost forget that Broccoli's our spotlight
Broccoli
character.
had a lot of death flags as soon as he was introduced into the. I remember when I made a joke because I was watching when we were watching when the first season of Alicization, when they're still climbing the tower and they meet Broccoli for the first time. I was watching it, we were watching it as it was being aired, and with a couple of my mates, and I remember making the joke that when Broccoli was introduced and he was sitting in the bathtub or the whatever, because they meet him on like a bathhouse floor.
A bath,
and he's chilling in the water, and I'm like, and one of my friends asked me, who's that? And I was just like, oh, don't mind him. He just needs to get out of, he's just swimming in death flags, so he just needs to get back into the water. And
too true.
Or as I like to call him, Broccoli.
Yeah, Broccoli.
Yes. Ouch.
Yeah,
that guy literally almost every skin of his is a death flag. Every interaction with Alice is a death flag.
Especially when they put him on the front lines in the War of Underworld, I was like, yeah, he's gonna die.
Oh, for sure.
Or that he had a meaningful conversation with Alice. Okay, that's a mentor. He will die.
Dead.
Yeah.
I was like, Alice, you're not seeing your impromptu dad again anytime soon.
I was surprised that he survived for so long, because that many death flags and surviving for so long.
Made it a long way though.
I mean, he's a pretty fucking powerful character. So I knew that he was going to die probably eventually. I'm really glad that they gave him the fight against Gabriel, because I mean it had to be on that kind of tier,
The god tier fight.
Yes, exactly. God.
he had to go out against an actual like strong character. He couldn't just like die, off
Yeah.
screen. He had to like actually, Yeah, no, I appreciate that as well.
Yeah, it's nice for someone who's actually a good character to actually if they have to do a sacrifice, whatever, it's done well enough. Yeah,
And not harem character.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that the like the fight scene, and then after the fight when like Alice kind of comes to and like realizes he's dead, I was like, oh wow, that was really, really good. Like that was just executed very, very well.
And it helps that Ricky has the best production team in existence around him.
Oh God,
the man got so lucky with the people he got in his team. Just the people that made the show. The budget they allocated to it. Even the composer. The composer of SAO carries.
Oh, so many scenes with just the music leading. Yeah, you're right.
The composer just fucking hard carries. He got so lucky with the people that supports him.
The animation in the Broccoli fight is it's insane. It's so good.
All the money goes into SAO, baby.
Yeah, pretty much. I remember when I was watching that video live. And shows don't usually rile up a response out of me, but I remember when he's kind of wandering around looking for the kind of like, I guess I'll call it like the time echo of himself to like kill him. Kill Vecta. I was like, oh my God, like I was kind of on the edge of my seat, because I was like, holy shit. Yeah.
Holy fuck, this is actually kind of interesting.
Yeah, like I was like, wow, like this show has really got me engaged right now. I was tripping. Like that. Then now that I'm thinking about it, that might be my favorite episode of like the whole series, like of War of Underworld at least.
Yeah.
Just that fight and the conclusion to it. It's just so well executed.
Yeah.
If we barely understand his abilities and how they work, they just so brilliantly executed that you just sit there and wow.
It was really cool. Yeah.
But one thing I really found it a little strange about his character, his connection to naked purple-haired Asuna.
Yes, also known as Administrator.
We calling her the naked purple-haired Asuna. That's her proper name. And
that's her official.
MPHA.
Yeah, I mean, I for some reason I have a feeling that Administrator is going to be involved in the next arc somehow. I just have a feeling that we haven't seen the end of her, because when she died, she was technically already like teleporting or porting herself out of the underworld, essentially.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
So I have a feeling because I've read volume 1 of the new arc. I have a feeling that she's going to be in the new volume in some way, shape, or form. I'm not sure yet. I know for a fact that what's his name again? Oh, the guy who created Kiko Kaiba. Yeah, Kaiba is definitely going to be in there because Kaiba never dies.
Yes.
He keeps appearing for no apparent reason.
Yeah, Kaiba is the world's most convenient plot point, dude. Because he's just like, even in like the War of the Underworld, when they were like fighting on the ocean turtle, he just like downloads himself onto a robot, and he's like, that's right, boys. Yeah, two robots. Like, man was just out here playing real steel. Like he was just, like he was, I want to star in the new Real Steel movie, so he just like carries.
Tristan, we have one very big question about the administrator. If she really appears in the newest arc, one question: would she be a villain or a new harem member?
Oh God! If Ricky tries to make her a fucking
how about both? Is it too much to ask for both? I feel like we could go with both.
Both. I like it.
I mean, I actually when we were talking about villains, I forgot about it. I think Administrator is an interesting villain. Yes. I just don't think that she's out of like all the tiers, I would probably put her like in top 3 maybe, just because I like that they showed like her progression.
Yeah, you can
from.
Yeah, you can understand her character. Not really sympathize.
Sympathize, yeah.
Sympathize, yes. I can't hug. But you could really understand where she is coming from. You may not agree, you may not like her, but you could see why she does what she does. And in some way, it's really admirable because she was really human in a way because she wanted to avoid death. She wanted to control over her life.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
her character has a lot of potential, and if I really want to her in some form or some way or other, sometime.
Well, it's also interesting too because like I was thinking about this while watching War of Underworld, but like if her plan had succeeded, like would they have actually won like right off the bat, like in the war? If
Yeah,
I think her plan to turn everyone like into sword weapons, like because I look back on it and I'm like, shit, that might have actually worked.
that might have actually fucking worked. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, try and beat a monster made of swords.
I mean,
Yeah.
Kirito, or rather, Kirito didn't, but Yu-Gi-Oh did.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, it's kind of makes sense
Yu-Gi-Oh
because if you really think about it logically, sacrificing a few for the sake of others is not much of a bad decision. Countless people, countless
the
people,
needs of the many. The
yeah,
needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
yeah, and
Utilitarian
and
approach.
countless people made it before, and you can kind of agree with it, but animal logic, so everyone has to live. So basically, she's a bad guy because she accepts that someone had to die for the sake of others. And yeah, it gives a new depth to her character and a lot of potential to work on.
Sure. Yeah, no, and there are definitely a lot about like in general the Alicization arc that I like a lot, which is probably why objectively speaking is the best SAO arc if you look at writing quality because it's just so much more complex than anything he wrote before Alicization. It's just miles above. Like Fairy Dance is a bad fan fiction in comparison to Alicization. Like it's just there is no comparison between the two.
Yeah. And then
not that Fairy Dance exists, but if it did, it would be a bad
Yeah, I've never even heard of that one.
Yeah,
crazy.
The name just kind of comes to me.
I mean, I really liked it in the role of the War of Underworld, the small and large callbacks to previous seasons because it shows that Reki doesn't just write a new power fantasy with the same old characters, but he's actually trying to work it into the whole world, into a world. How do you say this? Universe or
timeline,
He wanted to write a
example,
real isekai, so he wrote Alicization.
for example, I really liked, even if he didn't really have much of effect on the plot, I really liked seeing Eugene from the non-existing Fairy Dance arc fighting among Klein and the others, because his character was kind of a bad guy in the on that arc that doesn't exist. But in the end, he's just a player, and it's nice to see him that he's actually the good guy. And for example, he's another character that I really want to see shine, or at least see more of him, because a good character, a lot of potential.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I think that was why War of Underworld. It's the redeeming part of War of Underworld Part 2 for me. It's just the accumulation of all the previous seasons kind of into that one big fight, because it's really cool to see even like the characters who maybe had like one or two scenes showing up and actually doing something that directly impacts like the plot. Like all of a sudden everyone is important, and that's really cool. Like I cheered when the Sleeping Knights showed up and helped Asuna like in that one part of the fight. I was like, hell yeah, like those are my people.
Or like Sakuya and Alicia who fighting together or trying to save the other. This was really, I don't know why, because they are really minor characters, but when they die, I just sat there and damn, that hurt.
Yeah.
That really hurt, because I just saw that they basically sacrificed a large part of their life, because they must have spent a lot of money and time on the LAO characters, and just wow, that's even if their death is not real, they didn't really die. Their death just really, I said that, and wow, that meant something.
Because they feel that pain, when they get killed. and they're dying to protect the other Flocklights who actually can die.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's really cool. And it's kind of like the thing that it feels like, even though no one of note dies in Underworld really, in the War of Underworld, it's still like the side characters like Berkuli dying is made harsher by the fact that he has a kid with Finatio. And
Ooh,
she's expecting a child, and then he dies, and she sort of realized she can feel it when he dies, which is a little bullshit, but at the same
like
time.
in Naruto when Asuma dies and Kurana is just simply senses that, oh, my husband died, and that's really same level, but still nice. It was really good.
It just has more of an emotional like resonance, I feel, Alicization than a lot of others. A lot of the other arcs in SAO, because it hits on a different level,
which definitely elevates it above most of the arcs anyway.
Yeah,
but
most of them for sure.
I would put this definitely below Alicization, but I would put it above most of the rest.
Yeah. One thing I didn't really understand and found it a little forced, that Yuki's involved and that her ghost is kind of there to cheer on Asuna. What else do you call it?
Yeah, doing Force Ghosts.
They were doing Force Ghosts. They were Star Wars. Yeah.
I needed to make it into a thing in my fanfic. Okay.
It would actually make more sense there because it's actually based in there.
Star Wars, but still.
Yeah, exactly. See, they went full Star Wars there for sure, and there is a lot of like, if you sit down and you analyze individual plot points and stuff and elements from Alicization and War of Underworld, you're gonna find some galaxy-sized plot holes if you just look. But the
shall I tell you
still
one
come
but
together.
I really don't understand, because in the movie Ordinal Scale, at the very end, Kiko shows the professor, I don't know his name, the
Shigemura,
the cube,
right?
The light cube, yes, I think. And if they make so many callbacks, and they give Yuna and AG into the plot, and AG makes a really nice last stand that really, I think, may add a lot of good to his character. Where's the professor? What is his input? What is his effect on the whole thing?
He's in jail. That's his effect on the world.
But why did they make that teasing skin in the end of the movie? And I don't
know.
Fan service, man. It was just like it was just the title.
Is, showing us boobs. That's fan
no,
service.
yeah. But it's just like, just like you said, they're just trying to, I think, connect everything and make it feel coherent, so that I guess so that Ordinal Scale didn't feel like it was just some off thing that kind of happened.
Offshoot.
Yeah.
So and that's why they also use the Ogma a lot when they're out in the real world. Even in the station, they're walking around with the Ogma.
It's a really nice touch, because in most anime, the movies are kind of just
on the side.
Yes, and the people don't ever remember what happens in them. That doesn't affect the plot at all, and just there to get a lot of money.
Yeah. So it was very nice to see that, and I actually enjoyed Ordinal Scale quite a bit for what it was.
Me too.
I actually thought that was pretty good. I mean, the ending is still kind of cringe. The fight against the 100th floor boss thing, it looks amazing.
I think it was because they were a little pressed for time, because it was still a movie. If it was given more time, maybe a 3-hour movie or 4-hour movie, like
they could have
Snyder cut.
Snyder
cut for Ordinal Scale.
And I will never stop laughing at the fact that, oh my god, the whole Asuna uncensored nude scene in the Blu-ray is the funniest shit I've ever seen, because it's literally not even 5 seconds of nudity that they just no, there's no way we can show this in theaters, we have to put this in the Blu-ray, and it's like, it's 5 seconds of nudity, like, come on. No one was gonna notice that in the cinema.
We are one your main, of course we notice.
I'm like, it's so overblown. It's just Asuna getting out of the bathtub and you see her tits, like, uncensored for the first time ever. And they were like, no, there's no way we can put this in the theatrical release.
You just picture all the fans and that will just rave immediately as soon as they saw that. Just You'd hear it from outside.
Exactly. Like if you were gonna put it in, like why just put that into like the 5-second Blu-ray? You know, Ricky had to sign off on that. You know,
And it was like someone drew, like someone spent their time animating that scene. Like
Fucking legend.
Exactly.
Fucking legend.
budget went to that.
Exactly. And Ricky's like, this is fucking vital. We need this in the show.
There's the same level that the subtitles placed to the side just so we could watch the boobs. That's the same level
literally.
of legend.
And in the for sure. No, and I mean, so like personally, I definitely think that Alicization is my second favorite arc. Like just the whole, if you count it as a whole. Like not if we don't separate between War of Underworld and Alicization, I would say that just the whole thing as a whole is my second favorite arc, with the first one. With the first one being Aincrad, not because Aincrad is good, because it's not. It blows. It blows mad ass actually.
Yes.
But it's because I watched SAO when I was 13 years old. Way the fuck back in 2013. So and like that experience of watching the first season of SAO when I was 13 was mind blowing, because it was the first anime. Because it was the first anime I ever saw. So I was convinced it was the best thing on God's green earth. You know, I was like, this is the peak of creative humanity. We'll never go past this. Because I was like, no, it was just a huge moment for 13-year-old me.
Definitely.
So my own personal love for the Aincrad arc, even though it's dog shit, is never probably going to be topped by anything the show ever does again.
For me, that was around 14 years old with the light novels, fan translated version, and when I just read the first book and just wow. That was the same age when I really started playing MMOs. Metin 2, I don't know the other names, but really I just scratched the really surface of what an MMO is. That was the age when I really liked the fantasy, a power fantasy, where I really just wanted to self-insert myself to the good fantasy, even if I didn't know it consciously. And I just found the light novel, and I just read it, and awesome.
At least you went into it with an open mind. Let's just put it like that.
Yeah.
Because I went into it very cynical. So
when you watched the first season,
I think I've briefly mentioned it before, but basically it was I was very cynical at the time about it before I watched it. And me and a friend made a bet, and basically whoever lost the bet had to watch it. I lost the bet, so I watched it. But then
it's a dangerous bet. It's like if you lose this bet, you have to rewatch Fairy Dance, and it's like, please God, don't let me lose this bet.
So that was my first experience in it. But then after I think we watched the first season again about a year or so after that. And I gradually gained a bit more of a positive attitude towards it. It still wasn't a hugely positive attitude, but it was more positive than it was. But
no, I'm actually happy that I watched SAO when I was 13, because it never would have resonated with me if I watched it for the first time when I was like 17, 18, and I had more of ability to think critically.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able. It wouldn't even have mattered. Like I would have been like, yeah, this is dog shit, and I probably wouldn't even have watched more. But because I watched it when I was 13, it just hit really hard.
I mean, to be serious, me and Panzer just rewatched the series from season 1 because of the podcast, and finally watched Alicization 2, and really just the earlier parts that. One part is this because I basically know the plot from one end to the other. Basically, I remembered everything. I just did okay, skip.
Yeah, exactly.
And what? No, skip. Okay, that's a good skin. Okay, skip. That was basically me in season 1 and season 2, because even though I really loved the season 1's the SAO part, because it was beautifully animated, especially when it was made, and it kind of reminded it that I love the idea of SAO, not the execution of SAO.
Yeah.
And
What one thing I will say about it though is even if I don't hugely enjoy the execution of it, I I know I remember the events of the first arc much more than the later ones. For some reason, I remember nearly what happens in every episode compared to say I don't know, say for War of Underworld. I enjoyed War of Underworld more than the original Aincrad arc.
I mean,
But I remember more of Aincrad than I do of War of Underworld for some reason.
I mean, to be fair, I think it was around 10 years since I last read the light novels of the Aincrad arc, of the Fairy Dance and the Phantom Bullet, and even though it was 10 years ago, I still remember the most of it. I still watch the anime and I think, yeah, that was in the light novel. That scheme from the light novel was not added, and that was different in the light novel. And I just, it was really made an effect. It was really stayed with me.
Yeah.
To the point
And
that,
I mean, yeah.
the point even though that I wasn't really having much interest in SAO when I started writing fanfiction. For some reason, still the first story that I started working on seriously was an SAO crossover, because the Aincrad arc specifically, because it was such a monumental part of my whole relationship with anime.
Yeah.
Since we're on the kind of like the topic of like first SAO experiences, I'm in a similar boat where SAO was one of my very first anime to watch. I think my friend had like invited me over. It was already streaming on Netflix at the time, and he just kind of pitched it to me, the idea of being like trapped in a video game. And we started from episode 1, and I think we in that one sitting had almost gone through the entire like Aincrad arc, just because it was just so engaging. And I think again, like Reki does such a good job at the world building with setting up the stakes and like running with it. I mean, like we said, sometimes it's in the execution where most of the time it's in the execution where a lot of the issues pop up. But tying it into War of Underworld, I think my favorite thing, one of my very favorite things about War of Underworld is that at the very least, it feels like a payoff from all of that time ago of watching the first arc. It's really, really cool to see how all of those events like just kind of slowly build up and then finally pay off here, even in some of the smaller arcs like Fairy Dance, like y'all said, with some of the characters that show up to help. It's just a really cool feeling of being like, holy shit, this feels like an epic finale at most. And even if in the back of your brain you have like some issues with how War of Underworld, in my case in particular, part 2, is executed, some of the details and like some of the things like maybe the plot holes don't line up, but it's just a really cool thing to see how, from all those years ago when the first season aired to like now, literally very recently, seeing that kind of payoff. It's very awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
So kudos for that.
Yeah, for me, my one of maybe not favorite skins, but one I really enjoyed that even though GGO was basically abandoned after the Phantom Bullet arc, it still had its space, its place in the plot. That it was the interaction of Miller and his group. That it was a prelude to the attack on of the Rat forces. So it was nice that even in smaller parts that was really easily ignored or really Reki basically just abandoned them, they still came back. Like even Sachi, when Kirito tries to remember who he is, that was a little forced, but still a nice include that experience really made its mark on him.
Yeah, it means that everything mattered, basically.
Yeah, that it wasn't just a game. It wasn't. That was a question that was many times asked in the series. What is reality, and what's the difference between this game, a virtual reality, and reality itself? And it was really nice to see that, even though it's virtual and that it was nothing serious. Sometimes it was basically as real as it was to those who experienced it.
Right on.
That's pretty much kind of similar, yeah. It's really cool in a way. And of course, like he gets away. Ricky kind of gets away with it a little bit in the first arc, in the Aincrad arc, because the entire Aincrad arc is based on 2 books. One of which, obviously was written originally as an entry into a writing competition where it had like a word limit and everything. So like he really had to condense that shit to like essentially fit the requirements, and even then he couldn't make it to the tournament because it just was too big. So and that's why they jump from floor 1 to 10 to 75 and boom, story over. Because he had to just fit the word requirement, and so he kind of gets away with the shitty writing in the first season. In a way, it still doesn't excuse it, because I still believe that even with those restrictions, you could have made something infinitely better. In fact, I've seen it happen because I've read SAO Fanfiction. So, even with those time restrictions, you can make a better story than he did. But I still applaud him for just going for it, essentially. And he is very much a guy who had he had a very cool idea, and he started writing it because he was bored in college classes and wanted to participate in a writing tournament, and then it ended up becoming this huge worldwide phenomenon.
Yes.
With like absolutely millions of people having seen it and watched it.
I mean,
And
it's the same that for example, I respect J.K. Rowling too, because even if I have a lot of different ideas for how Harry Potter should have been going down, and I really don't like certain plots or parts of it, it still introduced us to a very large, very vast, and very interesting world.
Yeah, exactly.
And even if the execution is not good in an anime or light novel, I really don't mind if I have a good idea that I can immerse myself, because it's worth it, because it opens up new possibilities.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
That's why
the SAO fanfiction scene.
Yeah,
that's kind of why we're here, because we see a lot of potential in the story
we are
world.
making SAO better.
Well, we're trying to make SAO better.
Trying in our own ways,
in our own ways. And I mean, I'd say that a solid 75% succeed.
Yes. The rest is horny.
Not that SAO sets the largest bar in the universe, but
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the rest is just horny.
I swear to God, I've started thinking of Ricky as a fan fiction writer. I'm not even kidding. I'm like, every time Ricky releases a new book, it's like, oh, it's a new chapter. Time to read it. And it's like, oh, okay, so this is Ricky's version of SAO. Okay, I see how it is.
To be honest, the quality does fit that, because your earlier works aren't going to be as good, but as gradually as you continue on, you get more feedback on it, it'll gradually become better.
Yeah, literally, he feels like an animator. He feels like a fan fiction writer in a lot of ways. I'm almost started to think of him as one, where it's like, oh yes, Ricky has released a new chapter.
He's one of us.
Exactly. It's just literally started thinking of him as a fan fiction writer, which has helped me, kind of accept the stuff he does a little bit better, because I can kind of like, okay, well, if there's something in the SAO version or his version of SAO that I don't like, or that I really, really, feel strongly against, and I know that there's someone out there who's going to have a different version of SAO that I might like more.
Yeah. You know what would be funny? If we could somehow make Reki invited to the fanfiction.
Yeah, Reki doesn't understand English.
No, I don't care.
He has a translator every time he goes into one of those events. He's like, he speaks to the translator first, and then he speaks to the...
I don't need... we just need it for the meme.
Exactly, just have Reki in here.
We need him to be one of us.
Exactly. Reki's just in there, okay guys, I'm off to work on Progressive.
Yeah.
It was so. I mean, it'd just be funny just to picture it, to be honest.
Yeah, just Reki chilling out in here. He's like, I heard y'all motherfuckers were talking shit about SAO, huh? All right, okay. I'll read your work, see how you like it. I'll criticize your work.
Oh god,
that would have been quite something.
Quite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's elements. Yeah.
But yes,
Okay.
overall, I'd say I did enjoy the arc, even if it did have its
Definitely.
downfalls.
I mean, the reason we can complain so much because we liked it enough to notice these things. Because,
Yeah,
I mean,
I paid a lot of attention during War of
yes.
Underworld. I wasn't zoning out when I was watching.
I mean, if you compare that when we covered Fairy Dance, despite all of us agreeing that that was bad, we couldn't really talk about it. What I think it was 1 hour that we were able to talk with 4 of us or 5 of us about it, and then we move on to the other topics. That was Fairy Dance.
Yeah, I mean, Fairy Dance is kind of like with I feel like with a lot of the other SAO arcs, it's kind of like you care about it and therefore you criticize it a lot. With Fairy Dance, it's mostly just hate.
Yes,
it's just burning hatred from deep.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm one of the few who are like it to the point that I would like it to be better, but don't really hate it. But yeah,
I mean,
I'm on the minority because I don't like it, but I could see the potential in it.
I mean, I could kind of see the problem with me when I watched Fairy Dance is that I also watched Fairy Dance when I was 13 again because I watched SAO for the first time when I was 13, and even back then when I was 13 and like completely in love with SAO because I just discovered it, even 13-year-old version of me thought that shit was kind of bad.
Yeah.
Even he was like, "Yo, this is kind of dog."
Yeah.
Like, what happened?
Yeah, it's like, where did the quality go? Like, what is this? Is that his cousin? Is she into him?
Alabama.
I was kind of like, what?
Are we at Alabama?
I mean, literally, I was like, wait, I thought it was Japan, not Alabama. It's like,
I mean, what I liked about that, because for me and Panzer, both Alicization and War of the Underworld is so fresh that it was much more enjoyable to talk about it than, for me at least, that about even GGO or the original arc, because we already know it in the back of our hands. And even if we talk about and have a few new interesting points, it's already something we went over so many times by ourselves or other people. But with Alicization, it really has a lot of ideas, a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah, especially because I've watched a decent chunk of isekais as well, and I can see now, because it's kind of with more of that as well, I can see where some of the things have come from and where certain bits have led to other places, so I can really start to sense of
the similarities.
Where certain ideas and where certain things have come from.
What is the best isekai though? That's the question. I already know what mine is, but
that's very personal opinion.
It's very personal.
Well,
a lot of people will probably say Mushoku Tensei after last season, but
I liked it. I liked it, but for some reason I don't really have the basis but I really like the Rising of the Shield Hero.
Same.
It's my favorite.
Yeah.
And I'm really hyped for the next season whenever it comes.
Yeah, that's gonna be great. It's coming in this year, I think.
Ooh,
nice.
Yes.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
So just quickly, I know for some reason I do like occasion isekai, but for some reason I prefer reverse ones.
Where isekai characters but put in the real world.
Yeah, so like you had there was a part timer that was brilliant.
There was a part timer.
That's really good. Loved it.
I really enjoyed.
Does that count as an isekai?
Which one?
Devil of the part timer.
Devil is a part timer is a reverse isekai.
Yeah, so it's still an isekai. So
I haven't heard that.
It does technically count.
I haven't heard that term before, but yeah.
Yeah, I really liked Devil as a part-timer. That shit was funny, and it was actually interesting as well. Like, it got me pretty interested. In terms of like pure normal isekais, there's only really one show that I would look at and be like, yeah, this is just pure quality, and that is just Re:Zero. Because
I still haven't watched it, and
Re:Zero is just next level in terms of building.
I have to say, I'm still a little skeptical, even if I heard a lot of good things about it.
Re:Zero, especially after the latest season 2 of Re:Zero, fucking hell.
I mean,
good.
I will probably will be the same with JoJo, that I heard a lot of good about JoJo, but still waited a few years before I went down and watched it. So
yeah, you're gonna love Re:Zero when you watch it. You're going to love Re:Zero because it just really is that good.
Wow, my interest is peaked. And after I finish
Below
watching,
Horizon. No, Gurren Lagann.
yes, ooh,
Gurren
I'm
Lagann.
at episode 16 right
Yeah,
now.
we convinced him. Yeah, we convinced him to watch Gurren Lagann.
Convinced
I
him
think
to
he
watch
likes
it.
No,
Nice.
they didn't. No, it's for research. It's for research for Yuri Big Robot Harem.
Oh, okay. But which episode are you on now?
I just episode 16, the summary one,
Okay, so you finished
the first half.
The first half.
the first
Yeah.
half. Okay, yeah.
That was
okay, yeah.
That
Well,
was
you have so
legit.
much left.
Every episode was better than the next, and then just sitting there and wow.
Yeah,
wow,
just wait until the last half, dude.
There's a
Yeah.
I mean,
You have
so
when
much
Camino
left.
died, I legit cried. He just only had a
Yeah,
few
when Kamino
episodes,
died?
and just, damn it, not him, and just,
Yeah. Kamina's death hit me hard, man, and that was
Yeah.
surprising because it was like
Yeah.
8 episodes in as well. And I don't think I've ever been that emotionally attached to a character 8 episodes into a show before.
yeah, definitely same here.
And it just hit fucking hard.
Solid.
Oh, Bayor,
It's so good.
glad to see you joining us. You missed around 2 hours of bitching and praising War of the Underworld and the rest of SAO. And now we are talking about Gurren Lagann.
Gurren Lagann. Yeah, we should probably, stop the podcast soon because we're kind of straying off topic.
Straying off to the side, yeah.
Yeah, we still have one snippet, so if you
Right. We have
if
a
you would
snippet,
Twisted do the honors to represent our missing Sage land.
Yeah. Let's see here. So this is from Len's
One-shot collection.
SAO One Shot collection, which currently only has 3 chapters. So if you're feeling up for a very short read, but a good one, I would recommend this. I've actually read it. It's pretty
Same
good.
here. Yeah, interesting.
It's a good one. It's of course one shots, so
Yeah.
It's okay. So you can find. Yeah, we'll have the link in the description and everything, so you can just go look at that.
Don't worry.
All right. This is from the first chapter, A Strange Couple of Customers. Silent and empty. 2 words that you wouldn't want to use when describing your place of work, especially if that place of work is a cafe. Wiping down the already sparkling counter for what felt like the 1,000th time that day, Egil sighed loudly. Business was not going well for the Dicey Cafe. Aside from the 4 or 5 times a week Kirito, Asuna, and the others, his allies and close friends from his time trapped in the death game Sword Art Online, was around, the place was dead. Well, looks like another early closing time for us again, huh? He announced to the empty cafe. Continuing to clean up, he quietly added, I would do anything to have just one person walk through that door right now. Ring. Egil jolted slightly at the sudden noise of the bell at the door, alerting him to the presence of someone else entering the cafe. As if his prayers from a few seconds before had been answered, he looked up to see 2 people standing before him, a boy and a girl. They looked to be the same age as his most valued and only customers. Won't be able to sell them any alcohol then, I suppose, Egil thought to himself. Whilst the girl seemed indifferent, and dare he say even cold toward him, the boy looked up at him shyly, fear evident in his bright emerald-colored eyes. It didn't really surprise Egil that he was intimidated, as the man towered above everybody he came across. The girl, however, intrigued him. The look of indifference on her face seemed forced, as if she was trying to put up some kind of front. Nonetheless, Egil smiled widely, greeting them cheerfully. Hello, you 2. Welcome to the Dicey Cafe. What can I get for you? He asked. And that's the end of the snippet.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, marvelous.
Yeah. So you'll find if you want to read that, you'll find the link to it, and as well as the other snippets in the description.
Of course, as usual.
As usual.
Well, as you said, it really should be almost time that we finish this podcast officially, because I, for one, would like to talk a lot more if you are up to it after finishing. But
I mean, you can go ahead if you want, yeah.
So I think, Panzer, it's your duty and your honor to end the podcast in a good note.
All right then. Well, that Well, it's actually probably been the longest episode yet, but that's it for War of Underworld. Thank you all for watching or listening. Can't really watch or listen, whatever. But and until next time, farewell.
Ooh, definitely mention next time, because next time will be
Next time, Star Wars, isn't it?
yes, a special episode of Star Wars. Lots of memes and whatever else we can think up until then.
It's gonna be beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely superb. Well,
Unlimited power.
Limited power.
Unlimited power.
Well then, goodbye and see you soon.